Go.
I am. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for my 10 minutes, and thank you to all the conferences I've ever been to that have inspired this talk. My talk is going to hopefully convince you to go to many different conferences, and it's going to take an Aladdin-themed magic carpet ride through the world of them and what they can do for you. So, conferences are a whole new world. The little sad teacher here in that side of the screen is me before IATEFL. It was the Easter holidays, I was exhausted, I didn't want to go to IATEFL. I arrived there on Thursday evening, ready to start on Friday, and I didn't want to be there. And then when I arrived at the venue on the Friday morning, suddenly I wanted to be there. Suddenly everything was great. Suddenly I remembered how big the world of ELT really is. It is because I think we spend so much time in our own tiny little context that we can sometimes forget that. So it's a great way to reinvigorate yourself, refresh your ideas. So that's the first reason why you should go to a conference. Of course, not just a face-to-face conference like IATEFL, but even a conference like today, which is why it's so great that we're all here today. A return of surprise. I think the great thing about conferences is who you talk to while you're there, who you bump into, which could be people you've met through social media, could be people you've worked with in the past, could be people you've met during courses, but always they're people who are just as keen and passionate about teaching as you are, and having this higher than normal concentration of TEFLers in one place is always a surprise, that there's so many people who are so passionate about what they're doing. So yeah, if you go to a conference, take the time to have a cup of coffee. Don't just think about the sessions you're going to attend. Think about also talking to people, making the most of being able to talk to people, because so much sharing happens that way as well. Similarly, in the online conferences or webinars, anything like that, use the chat box, communicate with people and see what happens. With new horizons to pursue, we all have different reasons to go to conferences, and there's so much that could come out of it. So for example, you might decide you want to join a SIG in terms of IATEFL, or that you might want to volunteer on the SIG where the interest is most closely suited to your favourite interest, and get involved with volunteering on those committees. Or maybe you're looking for a new job, so you go along to IATEFL with your CV. Or maybe you want to set up an association in your own country. So what better way than to meet people who may also be coming from your country but from a different part of it, and be able to network with them. So there is so much that you could do, so much that can be opened up to you by attending a conference. Fantastic point of view. Well, this one's pretty obvious really, because you go to the conference and depending on the size of it, there may be 3 parallel sessions running, or maybe there'll be, you know, a dozen more. At IATEFL there are many parallel sessions. Today, fortunately, we don't have to make choices, but in bigger conferences you have to decide, okay, I'm going to watch this, but I really wanted to watch, you know, several other things at the same time. There was one slot at IATEFL where I wanted to, there were about 4 talks on at the same time that I wanted to attend. Obviously, there was only one of me. But in that case, if you know people who are going to other sessions, then again, go back. Managed to attend, sort of, more sessions than just the one that you're actually physically able to go to. A dazzling place I never knew, the world of ELT. This goes back to what I was saying about most of the time we operate in our tiny context, which is great, our context might be fantastic, but there's just so much in ELT, and I think conferences are really good at reminding us just how much there is and giving us new avenues to think about. So whether it's context geographically or whether it's context in terms of the focus of your teaching, maybe you're in the classroom teaching students, maybe you're only teaching children in a secondary school, maybe you're a teacher trainer and you're just teaching trainers most of the time and you're not so often in the classroom teaching students. Maybe you want to get into materials writing, you do some little bit for your students but nothing else. Conferences can just open up your mind to what there is out there. And you can see CAMFED there. CAMFED I didn't know about until I went to ITEFL. There was a plenary session on it. Turns out it's a fantastic organisation that's bringing education to girls in Africa. So it's amazing. And I think the ELT world is just, it is so diverse and so big, and I think all too often that gets forgotten because day-to-day life absorbs us so completely. So being able to open our minds to this amazing world, and then you have it in your hand in a conference, and obviously the bigger the better, you have it in your hand. But even if it's a small conference, very specific conference, then you're finding out more about a particular area of ELT that perhaps you wouldn't have otherwise. 100,000 things to see. Yeah, well, what we said before, it's you have to make decisions, but don't panic about not being able to see everything and all the sessions, because of course the conference is more than just all the sessions that you're going to attend. So by all means, spend time beforehand thinking, I'm going to attend this, and this, but then be prepared to chuck it all in because you've met someone that you really want to have a cup of tea with instead. Or you've bumped into someone and they're going to another session. You think, actually, yeah, that session sounds really interesting too, so maybe I'll go to that rather. So, yeah, don't be too overwhelmed by the so many 100,000 things to see. There's plenty there, and there's plenty of choice, and there's plenty of people to talk to find out about the ones that you missed. I'll chase them anywhere. So this hopefully will be a little bit of use to you. There's a crowdsourced calendar which is operated by Tyson Seaburn on his website 4C. And this is basically anybody anywhere can put their conferences into the calendar so that everybody knows what's going on. So this is for May. You can see all the different conferences that are happening that you might be able to attend, whether virtually or in real life. That might be near you. Ah, my graphic's missing. Perfect. Okay, there's time to spare. In the middle, there should be a graphic showing online conferences, web conferences, other stuff, and life. Time to spare is a bit tongue-in-cheek because obviously there isn't time to spare. There's never time to spare. We're all incredibly busy people, but taking even a little bit of time when you can is better than nothing. So for example, with the conference today, maybe you have tons of classes to teach, like many of us do, but maybe you can pop in for the odd 10 minutes here or there. It's worth doing. Whatever little time that you have to devote is always worthwhile. Sharing is obviously what conferences are all about. Sharing in terms of talking about it with people while you're there, but also when you get back to your own context, talking about what you've seen and heard and discussed with other people and sharing it that way, or blogging about it, or if you spoke at the conference, many of the bigger conferences have conference selections, places where you can write up your talk and share it with an even wider audience. And I think sharing is central to getting the most out of the audience, because by sharing what you've seen with other people, you process it more deeply, you reflect on it, because you can't talk about something with somebody else if you haven't really, thought about how you feel about it, what your opinions are first. So talking about it, writing about it, whatever you can do to share it is incredibly worthwhile. So, to sum up, remember, you can't see it all, whether it's a conference like today, whether it's a massive international conference, whether it's a smaller, more specific conference, you're not going to be able to see it all, but that's okay. Do what you can. Anything is better than nothing, so plan what you're going to see beforehand, look at what there is, look at what matches your interests, what you're interested in finding out more about. But then keep your mind open to jacking in your plan and going with what happens on the day, and catching up with people also. And remember how we are all so small. Think about a mosaic. Each little part of ELT, each little aspect, whether it's geographically, whether it's the age of the students, whether it's the private versus the public, whether it's whether it's even smaller aspects, all of it makes up this massive, oopsie, stop waving my hands around, all of it makes up this massive, rich world that we need to see as much of as possible, and conferences are one way to do